seemed to us like a normal village with regular people performing routine activities. However, a day spent in this northern village of Punjab revealed the unusual degree of pain. We were introduced to Bakht Begum, who toils behind the plough every day to provide for her 3 grandchildren left at her mercy. She has stopped looking for a helping hand, or even the day when she can finally rest at home. Her 30-year-old son, who could have made that possible, never returned home last year. Serving the Pakistan Army, her only son was killed in Siachen.
ਇਹ ਤਸਵੀਰ ਹੈ ਬੱਚੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਦੇ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਰਹਿ ਗਏ ਛੋਟੇ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਰਹਿ ਗਏ ਕਾਲੀ ਰਾਤੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਭਾਈ ਜ਼ਿਆਦੀ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਪਿੰਡੀ ਕਿਦਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਤ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦੀ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਰਾ ਗਿਆ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਵਾਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਪਰਵੇਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਆਣਾ ਪਿਆ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਲੀ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਚਾਚੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਜੀ ਕੋਈ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਸ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਨੇ ਰਸਤਾ
The warmth of her love is a stark contrast to the cold and harsh reality of the highest battlefield in the world. The Siachen Glacier is the only inhabitable place in the area where for 6 months the snow saps its life out. The forward posts of Siachen are 6,000 meters high. Ordinary helicopters cease to function at this height. The ones that make it are threatened by the constant danger of extreme temperatures topped by the frequent avalanches. The bitter cold here takes more lives than the frequent military skirmishes. Still, the men here have a reason to fight on.
Charge 7! Reflection! 2-4! 3-8! Number 1!
The question of defending this area arose in 1984 when during an aerial reconnaissance, Indian military troops' presence was spotted over Pakistani sites.
This area was left vacant with the mutual consent that no one is going to make any ingress into this area. And once we spotted Indians' interest in this area and in fact their presence in this area, only then we decided to occupy the heights in a manner so that we are able to stop further ingress of Indians' troops. So it is very much imposed war.
Even when fighting stops, day-to-day life in this difficult terrain is a constant battle. But many have made friends with the bitter cold, acclimatized to the lack of oxygen, accepted physical alienation, nurtured the possibility of imminent death, and some have even come face to face with it. But there is a human side of their existence too, longing to be with their family and loved ones.
अभी 15 दिन हो गए मैंने खत लिखा है खत आया होगा लेकिन वो उधर नीचे पड़ा होगा अभी हो सकता है उनमें कोई बीमार हो कोई ठीक हो कोई शादी हो कोई मंगनी हो तो उसका बड़ा इंतजार होता है जब वो आ जाता है और फिर पता चल जाता है कि हमारे घर वाले ठीक ठाक है तो फिर हम खुश हो जाते हैं फिर कुछ दिन और से ही गुजर जाते हैं
The dividing line comes down from Siachen to Marala Headworks, located near the Pakistani industrial city of Sialkot. All along the line, misery abounds in various disguises. One such place is Chakoti, a small village just 2 kilometers from this line and worse hit by Indian cross-border shelling. We reached there late at night. The town seemed to be asleep, but the machine gun duel between Indian and Pakistani posts was on. Inside the homes, we found children restless in their beds and families feeling anxious and unsafe. They live with fear in their eyes and confusion in their heads. The next day brought us to a house that had congratulatory messages scrawled on the walls. "3 days ago, Shonali wedded her son. But along with the decorations is a photograph of her elder son, who became a victim of the Kashmir dispute. He was struck by a bullet shortly stepping outside his house." In July 1998, India launched a massive attack on this area in which 60 civilians died and many were wounded. Families had to migrate to safer places but could not live under temporary shelter for long and move back to their homes. Now they live on the edge with each life at stake. Any bullet at any time from across the border can ruin everything. Shonali's family is just one of them. Though her tears have dried up, her memories are still fresh. She led us to the place where her son had died.
पढ़ाई बजे से साल 17 बजे दूई मारे पतरिये ले थे 6 बजे वापस मोड़ से आने आने जिले छोड़े 6 बजे आने तक इन होजी सुना है जी सब वक्त जिसन जान सुन दफन करो जने तो ना तो नहीं है ना वापस जवाब देना फिर मोड़ा में ना तो सुबह नहीं दफन हो सकती बस खाला तो रात ही नहीं रे भी ना लो बारन दे में नकी जाने बीड़ सीढ़ी से कटे ये से ले कोई लोग तो नाच के जो साटा दूसरा बने 3 बजे खाला दफन किया.
In the marketplace, we found traces of that incident. However, in front of these destroyed shops, life seemed to have come back in this tea shop. Elders were eager to share with us their 50 years long experience of living on the edge. And there were some episodes which it seemed that they would never be able to scratch off their minds.
यहाँ के लोग यहाँ से पीछे तकरीबन 3 मील के फासले तक लोग जो है यहाँ से भाग गए सब निकल गए भागने के बगैर चारा इंतजू के 5 दिन जो है ना लगातार मतलब 24 घंटे जो फायरिंग हो रही थी 5 दिन पूरे यानी 30 को शुरू किया उन्होंने 30 जुलाई को और 4 अगस्त की शाम तक जो है ना लगातार फायरिंग की.
जब आते हैं बस इंटरव्यू लिया फोटो लिए आगे पीछे किया इस वक्त थोड़ी उसका कोई हाल ही नहीं निकला है उन्होंने इंटरव्यू जो हमारे हुए किसी ने नहीं पूछा है कि तुम्हारे साथ क्या हुआ जो आता है बस इधर ही गाल बात पूछता है तो फिर चला जाता है उसका हल कोई नहीं निकला है अभी तक.
We realize that he's also insinuating at us and our motives. Rightly enough, we too were clueless about a solution to this 50-year-old dispute. A dispute perpetrated by one man, Maharaja of Kashmir Hari Singh's decision to throw in his lot with India against the popular will of his people, through the instrument of accession, the validity of which is being challenged.
As the accession treaty was being negotiated, India had already mounted a military campaign and their troops were underway. And this fact has now been highlighted in many international scholarly works, including that of Alastair Lamb. And Maharaja, for all practical purposes, had become a lame duck ruler. You would recall that he had actually escaped Srinagar and he had actually moved to Jammu, and there was a very active and a very live insurgency against his rule. And if the Indians would not have sent their military troops, there was a very strong possibility that the Kashmiri freedom fighters might have liberated all of Jammu and Kashmir.
To get better insight into the complexities of the dispute, we met Sardar Qayyum, former president of the Pakistani-administered Kashmir, and one of the main figures who led the revolt against Maharaja in 1948. We asked him if India was justified in blaming Pakistan for instigating this movement.
When Pakistan was declared, people became restless, you see, impatient. Why should the Jammu and Kashmir state not be declared a part of? So I leading that group, you see, we took the position that either Maharaja declares accession with Pakistan, or we will wage an agitation against him, you see, and overthrow the men. The Pakistan government was slightly averse to this movement. They were slightly reluctant in lending any support. They were not even prepared to listen to it. But we started this knowing, realizing the movement of state troops, the Dogra troops, the way they were moving along the border, we could see that they're going to seal off the border. Therefore, in order to stop them from sealing the border off, we took up to arms.
India sought the help of United Nations, where it was decided to hold a referendum.
Our pledge to the people of Kashmir, if you like, the people of this world, that this matter could be affirmed or cancelled by the people of Kashmir according to their wishes. We do not wish to win people against their will with the help of armed force, and if the people want to part company with us, they may go their own way and we shall go ours. We want no forced marriages, no forced unions.
Promises remain promises, and the plebiscite has not been held to date. Non-implementation of the UN resolution on Kashmir led both Pakistan and India on the road of military confrontation, first in 1965 and then again in 1971. It was after the 1971 war that both parties sat across the table and signed the Simla Agreement, which clearly stated that Kashmir was an issue and needed resolving. It also stated that both parties would respect the line of control. India was the first to break this clause.
In the mid-80s, they had sent military expeditions and they occupied large chunks of Pakistan-administered territory in Siachen, including about 10 or 11 military posts. So from mid-80s onwards, India has been encroaching, has been violating the spirit of the Simla Agreement by encroaching on the Pakistani territory on the LOC side.
No referendum has been held to date. India claims that state elections are a substitute to plebiscite, which according to her indicates that Kashmiris are happy to be a part of the Indian Union. Polls indicate otherwise. Each election in the valley witnessed the lowest turnout. Dissatisfaction that had been simmering since the blatantly rigged elections of 1987 turned into a massive uprising that demonstrated total alienation of Kashmiris from India. On our way back from Chakoti, we saw groups of huts and temporary shelters that are homes for men, women and children refugees who have fled from the Indian side of line of control. Grave human rights violations by the Indian security forces is what they claim as the reason for them being there. Some of them fleeing without knowledge of their destinations and with horrifying experiences. Like this man who killed his own grandson on the way.
क्योंकि जिस वक्त हम गुजर रहे थे तो हमारे से 100 गज पर एक इंडियन पोस्ट थी और तकरीबन इसी हिसाब से 100 गज पर दूसरी उसके बीच में से रास्ता था तो उस बच्चे ने रोना शुरू किया वो 1.5 साल का था हमने उसका मुंह बंद किया लेकिन तकरीबन 100-200 मीटर चलने के बाद जब हमने उसको हाथ उठाया वो मर चुका था.
The mother of the child still doesn't know that her son is dead.
मेरे 3 बच्चे थे 4 बच्चे चौथा बच्चा उधर ही रह गया उधर इंडिया में उधर नानी के पास.
But the people of Kashmir have a choice of sorts. These men, women and children can either succumb to a brutal fate or let their rage take them over and meet the challenge head on. Circumstances are forcing more and more people in Kashmir to turn into hardcore militants. We found some in the mountains near the line of control.
बुनियादी तौर पर जहाँ तक सीज़फायर लाइन का ताल्लुक है, जिसको हम क्रॉस करके आते हैं, कश्मीरियों ने उन्हें आज तक कभी तस्लीम ही नहीं किया है।
वो जब तक कश्मीर में हमारे साथ जो है जुल्म सितम रवा रखेंगे तो हम भी अपने मसला जद्दोजहद जो है शुरू रखेंगे। अगर वो टेबल टॉक पे आकर रायशुमारी के रास्ते पे आते हैं, रायशुमारी की बात करते हैं और कश्मीरी मुसलमानों को अपना हक लेने का जो है वो हक देते हैं, तो हम जो है उनके साथ इस हवाले से तैयार हैं।
India accuses Pakistan of training these fighters. Pakistan says it does not indulge or sponsor any such activity. The government says it is very hard to seal the line of control that runs through a mountainous terrain. And some Kashmiris from the Pakistani side of Kashmir may be going across, but the government has nothing to do with them.
India has embarked upon a policy of genocide and systematic depopulation of the valley on the one hand. And on the other hand, the Indian forces, they cross over to the other side of the ceasefire line, the Azad Kashmir side of the ceasefire line, and they attack the villages, behead the people. That's what happened in Lanjot. That's what happened in Farward Kohuta and Haji Pir. They beheaded the people, went back, and how can the people in Azad Kashmir remain silent spectators to all this?
Some religious organizations admit training them on their own without government support. There are different opinions. Some justify militancy, others oppose it.
Inspiring, aiding and abetting insurgency may be bleeding India, but it is bleeding Pakistan more than it is bleeding India.
Back in the refugee camp, we visited a house where a wedding ceremony was taking place. However, unlike most Pakistani weddings, women were not singing. There appeared to be a pall of gloom over the proceedings. We soon discovered the reason. The groom's father had been left behind on the Indian side of line of control, and no one in the family knew his whereabouts. Families like these continue to live divided, while no agreement is likely to be reached in the near future. India denies that an issue exists, and even when it admits, it insists on bilateral talks, while Pakistan demands third-party intervention.
Since 1990, I think now there is a third party, and that is Kashmiris themselves, the people of Valley. So we have to ask them, what do they want? And if they were satisfied with the status quo, then 75,000 people in Kashmir would not have laid down their lives.
The Kargil episode attracted world attention, but again for the wrong reason. It still had nothing to do with the sufferings of the Kashmiris. The interest was due to the fact that both parties involved were nuclear powers. The danger of nuclear war increases when the power rests with two arch rivals. And there is a big possibility that this 50-year-old dispute could spur the world into witnessing its first nuclear war.
A country which are next door neighbor, they have disputes and they have not been resolved, and they have a history of conflict, and if they are a nuclear weapon state, it is a witch's will. So I think if the world is concerned, it is rightly concerned.
Things seem to have started improving in February 98 with the start of the Lahore-Delhi bus service. For the first time, Wagah borders were decorated with buntings and not tanks. Army men exchanged sweets instead of fire. This was Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's first visit to Pakistan.
पाकिस्तान पड़ोसी साथ साथ रहना है, प्यार करें या वार करें, दोनों को ही सहना है. जो हम पर गुजरी बच्चों के संग न होने देंगे, हरी भरी धरती को खूनी रंग न लेने देंगे, जंग न होने देंगे.
Is this what the Kashmiris want? At least this was not the impression we got when we spent the night in the refugee camp. Their dreams are quite different. Their hearts still lie where their homes are and want eternal peace in this land of beauty. But there is still time before they realize their dreams. One thing is, however, certain, that Kashmiris do not want status quo. Then what are the options to resolve this dispute? An implementation of the UN resolution for holding a plebiscite remains the most viable and morally acceptable. There are those that are talked of: district-wise referendum, joint inter-park control, independent Kashmir, and creation of several independent states.
When the Americans or Europeans or others come to us and say that these are the options, we ask them a very simple question, that is this the position taken, suggested by the Indian government? They said no. I said, supposing we agree to an option, are you in a position to enforce it? And will India agree? They said, no, we cannot enforce it. So I said, what is the use of discussing options, you see, when India says no to everything and you have no way out?
World community is not taking any kind of interest to this issue, as they have taken the severe action against Yugoslavia, Iraq, and so many other countries. But why they are not taking any interest in Kashmir? Because there was not their benefit.
In this case, land matters more than the people. With no other country willing to intervene on behalf of Kashmiris, it is evident that they have no way out.
What we see today is a human tragedy of great proportions, and it will take the greatest of statesmanship to extricate ourselves. Let's not look for blame, though. Let's look for a way out.